This is Ace of Spades. You're listening to KRSM. We are a social enterprise of Pillsbury United Communities. This is 98.9 Radio for All.
Hello and welcome to Youth Frequency at KRSM 98.9. I'm your host, Ella, and I'm here with my co-host, Addie, and DJ Air Out. Today we will be interviewing school social worker Mix Alicia Bauers about teen mental health. Mix Alicia used to work at South High School and now works at Anderson United Middle School. Thank you for joining us, Mix Alicia.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
So, to start us off, what specifically do you do for your job?
A little bit of everything, I think. So I'm a school social worker. Right now I'm in 8th. I work with 8th graders, but I do a lot of different stuff. I do lots of mental health stuff. I meet with students one-on-one. I do some groups. We do all kinds of stuff, team meetings, individualized education plans for kids with special ed. So it's kind of like a catch-all. Sometimes if people don't know what to do, they're like, call Mix Alicia, call a social worker.
What inspired you to pursue your job in social work?
So I had a supervisor a million years ago. I was working in a day treatment. This was probably back in like 2012. This was a long time ago. But I was working there, and then I was just helping some of the kids one day, and she just looks at me and she's like, you need to go back to school to get your master's degree. And I was like, I am not going back to school. Like, no way. No way. And I was like, why do I need to go back? And she said, you need to go get your degree in social work because you're already a social worker. And so I was like, okay. And then I went to school, and, kind of the rest was history. But I would never, thank you, Lynn Erickson Starr. I never would have done this without her. So
that's really awesome.
Mm-hmm. Can you describe your journey to get where you are today?
I guess
Yes, it was on accident. Once I kind of I started working in 2004. This was forever ago, but that's when I graduated from undergrad. And I just kind of joke that I built myself a career when I wasn't paying attention, because I just started working with people and just loved it. And then I, worked in different places. I worked in corrections and residential and treatment foster care and case management, all kinds of things. And so I just kept working with kids and kept trying out different things. And then I found school social work, and that is a really good fit for me. So
that's super awesome. Mm-hmm. So you've been working with people for a really long time now?
A really long time.
Oh my gosh.
Yes.
So what do you think, as a social worker, should be more advocated when it comes to teenagers' mental health?
That's a super good question. I think that this is maybe a little bit further down the line, but I think that folks generally don't take teen mental health seriously enough. Yeah. And I think that, really raising awareness and really talking to other adults about how important it is for y'all. And I think, I just feel like there's sort of a misunderstanding about teenagers and mental health, and sort of they might be seeking attention, or they're manipulating, or they're acting out. And I think that people really, it would be so great if we could have a more trauma-informed lens and just sort of reframe how teenagers are trying to get their needs met.
The angsty teenager stereotype.
Yes, and you are angsty teenagers, but there's also so much more to it too. You have your hopes, you have your dreams, you have things that you go through, and y'all are carrying around so much more than we know.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh shoot, I forgot. Oh, what do you think schools could be doing more, or what boundaries or places could they set up to help those teenagers?
I love that question. I think hopefully schools are always trying to get more curious, about kind of what they can do. I know that at Anderson this year they started talking about making breakout spaces in teachers' actual classrooms. Instead of having to leave the classroom and go somewhere if you're feeling dysregulated, that there might be a spot in the back of the classroom where there's a beanbag chair, some fidgets, or some things to calm down, headphones, stuff like that. So I think that having spaces more readily available, and then also places where you can go check in with safe adults, and definitely, just have a couple different people around the school, or a couple different places that you feel like you can go to if you need a break.
A breakout room as in just a calming area where they can take a spot?
Yes, anything really. Any kind of sensory stuff, music maybe. Yeah. I mean, what would you want in a breakout space?
For when I was at South, my calming room was definitely your office, because the calming lights, the sensory room, and someone there that you know cared for you and cared for what you needed, that was more than just what your grades were and what your GPA was. They cared about, you cared about who we were as people and what we were feeling emotionally, and that really, really helped me and helped me calm down when I felt dysregulated and would help me actually get back to class.
That makes my heart so warm, actually. I mean, I think that's important because sometimes in school I think that we can get really stuck on education, and we forget that if you're carrying stuff around and you've got all this stuff going on in your head, maybe you had a fight with your parents, maybe your friend group is, having problems, and then we're just like, go to class. That's a really hard thing for y'all, because then we just become these enforcers instead of like people who are actually trying to extend care for y'all.
For a lot of other adults in some other places, that's definitely how I felt, where, at the end of the day, you had to go to class no matter how dysregulated or how unready you felt. And, in the end of the day, you definitely do. They wouldn't give you a space to talk about it. It was more talk about your grades with me, or talk about, how a class is doing, instead of, how are you doing as a person?
Yeah.
And you definitely helped provide that space, and I know you provided that space for a lot of other people, so we're very happy to have you on.
Thank you. I'm so thankful. That makes me so happy.
And I'm wondering, on a more local level, what do you think is a problem that needs to be addressed within the school system in Minneapolis?
Ooh.
Heavy question.
That we could have a whole radio show on that one. I mean, I feel like, especially after the pandemic, there was so much that y'all came back to. The socialization was so strange. The institutionalization of the schools was so strange again. Having to be specific places, interact with each other was so strange. And I think that hopefully we learned some things about mental health in particular. And I think I would love to see more partnerships with Minneapolis Public Schools and community partners. I know that the city of Minneapolis, they have school-based therapists at South and at Anderson. I think other schools too. But I would love for them to partner with some folks to maybe have folks come in and do some art, or maybe do some healing music, or pair up, and maybe some high school kids and some middle school kids could pair up and have buddies. Just some more sort of creative and holistic ways to do things, so that we can have more folks holding y'all from the outside.
Just more of a support web within the school?
Yes. Yeah. Because there's just so many talented and supportive adults out in the community that I think would also really like a chance to come in and help some folks and just work with y'all. Yeah. You're wonderful and hilarious, and it's a pleasure. So.
You're so nice. What do you think a parent or guardian could do to help support their, teenager or child going through something?
I get asked this all the time from parents. A lot of parents call me, if I called them and I'm like, hey, your kid came to me and said these things. A lot of parents really don't know what to do. And mostly what I would advise them is just to be really patient and to really listen, hear y'all out with no judgment, just kind of let you talk, validate your feelings, make sure you're safe. But mostly I think that presence is a really big thing, just making sure that when you have someone to talk to and debrief with, and if your parents can't be present all the time, then maybe find just a little time, or a specific time that you can reserve, just for the two of you.
Just holding a space for their emotions, and holding a space for how they are feeling even. And, sometimes emotions can be, not logical, but holding a space for them even when you can recognize that they are, I think, seems very important to me.
Yeah, and I think parents get scared. I think a lot of times if they don't have any experience with the mental health system, or they think, it's they might not think that they have the capacity, or they don't know how to deal with it. And I think that sort of forming that partnership between students and parents is also really important. Hey, I know that y'all are both scared, but you're both really committed to each other, and you can make it through. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm kind of wondering, as being a social worker within the school system, what's the difference between, working between, middle school and high school, kind of like that?
It's a really big transition. Actually, it's funny because I started out at Falwell in 2021. It was the day that y'all came back from the pandemic. So the elementary school kids came back, and then I worked at the middle school, and then I went over to South. It's different in that I think things get more serious in high school. It's the grades count. You're not just going to pass no matter what. You're not just going to graduate no matter what. Middle school, I think that there's still a lot of a feeling like we can just kind of do whatever we want, and we'll shape up once we get to high school.
That's certainly how I felt in middle school.
Yeah, I think a lot of kids do, because you just think that you can just change, overnight. But the nice thing is that they're just really different spots in your development. We talk about a lot of different things. We try and really prepare you for your future more when you get to high school, a little bit more kind of advanced conversations, right? And, as you kind of move towards your senior year, you're really launching to be an adult. And the sixth graders, I just want them to stop touching each other. Like, that's basically so the bar is like a little bit.
A bar's a bit lower, yeah.
Yes, but I don't want to sell them short because they are very intelligent little beings. And I think that the younger you are, too, the more that people can kind of dismiss you, and think that you don't have a voice. And so, I think creating that space is important maybe for both ages, but just for different reasons.
Right. Mm-hmm. I know for me a big thing for transitioning between 8th grade and, freshman year of high school, a lot of people told me, high school would be a lot more serious, a lot more different. People would be so much more mature, is how it was portrayed. But I definitely didn't feel like that at first. Mm-hmm. I think the farther I've got in, there is a bigger difference. But at first, I did not see that difference at all. It was definitely odd.
Yeah. I mean, because that was, your freshman year specifically was the first year, like the real first school year after the pandemic. And that was a tough year. That was a really tough year. I think a lot of y'all were sort of still kind of caught between elementary school and high school because you missed so much of that middle school development. But yeah, I remember you as a freshman.
It wasn't too long ago now.
No, it wasn't.
So how do you think the pandemic really affected students who are coming back into the schools now?
I feel like it's changed a little bit just because, obviously the kids were younger and younger when they went through the pandemic, and so it seems a little bit not as big of a shock when they're in school now because it's been a couple of years and they're younger, so I think that they got more accustomed to it. But I definitely I think that the pandemic disconnected a lot of folks from sort of the reality of another person, of me seeing you as a human. Because I actually worked as an individual therapist, as a trauma therapist at Reclaim, the Queer and Trans Youth Organization. They serve queer and trans youth for individual and group therapy. And I think what I saw most was just so much depression and just so much of that feeling of when is this going to end? There was so much of a big question mark. And so I think that y'all were older, and so you kind of remember that sort of angst and that feeling of when is this going to end, and that disconnection. And I think that what I see a little bit more in the middle schoolers is that's a little bit further away from them, and so they've had a little bit more time in their childhoods, if we could say, to adjust to that.
Right.
And so yeah, because I think just the first, especially when I first started at South, those first couple of years were just learning how to be in school. It's going to class was sort of what was expected, but it was really hard to get everybody into class.
Yeah, I still remember, when the pandemic started, just that first bit where they were oh, it's only going to be a few, 2 weeks off of school, and then it spiraled into much more, and that, anxiety. Mm-hmm. So you just do, you do a lot of, side community work, right?
Mm-hmm. I do. Not tons. I do have another job. I work at Children's Hospital in the emergency department. So I call that my fun job, but that's another thing that I do on the side. And then, just involved in different queer spaces, obviously, and big, huge identity of mine. So
that's awesome. I know you do from the sounds of it, it sounds like you do a large amount for the community, just the LGBTQ community, and working at a children's hospital, of course, isn't going to be easy work. It's a hard space, of course. And social working is not easy either. I couldn't deal with the other middle schoolers when I was in middle school.
Yeah, it's fun. I like being out in the community. I love seeing y'all out in the community. I love seeing all the, fun things that you do, especially, I just went to the play. I went and saw Clue at South, and it's just so fun to, watch you just be kids, because so much during the day it's just I can't go to class and I can't do this, and your teachers are on your cases, and it's you get upset and there's this whole vibe, and then all of a sudden I see you doing something that y'all love, like music or art or theater or sports, and you just come alive, and it's just so cool to see y'all as just kids being kids and little humans figuring out what you like and what you enjoy. So that's probably part of what I love, just being in kind of South Minneapolis and having our community, living in this space and being able to see y'all out and about.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're fine, honey.
I think the community has definitely gotten very strong over the pandemic and over the George Floyd killing. Mm-hmm. I think that really strengthened our community, and I also think, you definitely helped me with my school bit, and I think that you helped me form a community of my own, because I met a lot of people through your office, and, a lot of the people, even if I didn't talk to them in the hallways, or even get along with them, or talk to them in class, when they were in your office, they were supportive of everyone and what they were going through, and I think, having more spaces like that could be definitely helpful. Or even if you don't see each other or know each other outside of it, you're supportive and kind to each other nonetheless.
Yeah, I love that. That makes me really happy. One thing I loved about when y'all would just invade my office was that there were so many different of y'all. I mean, it was every single kind of kid, every grade, everybody would just kind of come in, get some snacks, say hello. And I think hopefully it was most, the majority of the time it was like that, where you could feel maybe there was an upperclassman and they were, could give you advice. And I remember one student in particular was a senior and would just really like to sort of be look, freshman, you need to shape up, because this is what I did when I was a freshman, and you need to get it together.
Everyone was super duper nice, and I think that definitely, helped me form some decisions that I would think are positive. And, it was nice to be able to see people that, even though you're never going to talk to them again, or maybe even see them in the classroom or anything, you could still talk to them and say, hey, you seem cool. Yeah. Or if you were having a tough time, they'd be like, hey, do you want to talk about it? And, it was just a very positive space overall.
Good.
And I think it would be, I do think it would be nice to have more open spaces for people around Minneapolis and just school systems in general.
Yeah. I think that is something that we lost. Folks talk about sort of a third space, quote unquote, where it's we lost a lot of spaces that you don't, you can go and you don't have to pay for, or community centers. There's just a lot of gap in sort of being able to be a community anywhere except for work or school. And those are, both great places, but also not based around fun.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Just finding those accessible third spaces, especially if you're younger, going to the library or doing a cool internship. Just especially as a teenager, you don't going to a library, not having to pay for that.
Yeah.
Especially just finding that space, I think, especially when you're younger, just finding community. What you said about South, one of my friends actually was in Clue.
Yeah.
And just seeing my friends have that connection and just doing something I know they appreciate, and them going after school every day, and just seeing the actual the process and then the turnout, it just kind of makes me proud of them, honestly.
For sure. Oh yeah, I'm so glad you said that. That's a really cool thing. And it does, I think anything you can join that builds community. And then when you go and you see that and you're just yes, and you're rooting for your friends and they know you're there, and it just brings that really beautiful feeling of togetherness.
For sure, yeah. All right, well, thank you, Mix Alicia. You're listening to KRSM 98.9, and I'm Addie, and we'll be right back after this short news break.
My name is Lee. You are currently listening to KRSM. Here's the latest news from North News. The mayor, Jacob Fry, has previously cut $350,000 for the renovation for North Commons Park but restored the money. Using unspent pandemic relief funds, the Minneapolis Park Board is using money from local and federal and state funds to help pay for the $35 million improvement on North Commons Park. The park project will also include new gyms, new water parks, and also upgrade the North Community Center. The project focuses on helping a community that hasn't had much investments. This North Commons Park construction will start next summer. This project is currently the largest investment in a park in the city's history.
Have a local business, event, or news you'd like to promote towards the community? KRSM offers underwriting opportunities that can get your info shared across the local airwaves. Depending on your needs, different opportunities are available, ranging from traditional recorded spots on the air to radio show sponsorships, or even our Many Voices One Message plan that gets your script read by multiple local voice actors, allowing for your script to align with various different themes of programming here at KRSM. Prices and plans are affordable, and translation services are available if needed. Turnaround time is fast, and programming times are flexible. If you are interested in any underwriting opportunities, please contact us at contact@krsmradio.org or through our website, www.krsmradio.org. That is contact@krsmradio.org and www.krsmradio.org. We look forward to helping you spread the news of what's happening around town.
Welcome back from the break. My name is Addie, and you're listening to KRSM 98.9. I'm here with my host, Ella, and we're talking with the school social worker, Alicia Bauers, about teen mental health. All right, let's continue with the questions. Kind of leaving off where we were. Just talking about community especially. I don't know, as I get older, like realizing how important community is, just realizing why we need that space around us, just especially as like a school too, and after the pandemic, just being able to have that connection, like I just feel very privileged kind of to be in the space that I am, to be around the people that I am, and to also like have those extracurriculars. Like kind of speaking personally, doing an extracurricular, like that can be hard, especially to like reach out, or like a sport or like theater. They can be hard to like make that first step and be like, oh, like I don't know anybody, I don't know what I'm gonna do.
Committing to it can be.
Oh, for sure.
That was hard for me when I first started doing a sport, was just making sure I actually like committed to it and writing down my name. That was a scary first step.
But also just like community that comes with that, and like what Ella said, just going there, writing your name down, first step. And for me, like I've done track and field and tennis, and really just like seeing that improvement, it makes me feel so proud.
Yes, congratulations, as it should.
Thank you.
I think it's also super rewarding to see people from, like, seeing Addie get better with track and showing me, their new records. That was just so cool. While I'm not in track myself and I don't know that much about it, it was still, like, really, really awesome to see those bigger steps and hitting new records and hitting new goals.
Yeah. It's super cool to encourage each other like that, and to be like, hey, I mean, like, even if you don't know much about it, you can be like, I mean, I would see your face, the smile, the pride, like the tone of your voice, and you could just celebrate along with you, What's your fastest time? I want to hear some bragging.
It's nothing too major. I usually do shorter distances in the 100. When I first started, I got like 15 seconds, which, isn't the best. But just like
very fast.
I think with track is like really, like, milliseconds or even the fewest seconds really do count. And just, like, I remember just knocking it down to, like, 14, like, just, I was just so proud of myself.
Yes.
Like, I feel like being able to have those hobbies, or just, like, any sort of hobby, really, like, just getting that sort of enjoyment from it, or even, like, sense a community again, just, like, just with that, I feel like in school, especially, just having some sort of, like, hobby or something, like, outside of school, which I feel like can also kind of count as, like, going into, like, a third space.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I think those are very good points. Yep.
What is your favorite story about your job that you're able to share with us?
Oh, there's so many. Y'all are so funny. I was thinking about this, and I think, like, it's sort of just an ongoing thing. I used to keep a quote book at South, and the things that y'all would say, like, kids would run into my office and just say the most, I mean, some of it was just so out of pocket and so funny, and other stuff was just about, I mean, whatever, you know, just running into my office, just yelling about stuff. I remember one day, one of the students that I had way back at Falwell and continued with through South, she ran into my office one day, and she was holding a white milk. She had just gone out of the cafeteria, and she throws it on my desk, and she's like, "Man, that Michelle Obama, I really miss my chocolate milk." Because of the, like, healthy lunch initiative. And so, you know, it's like we wrote it down, put it in the quote book.
That's unfortunate, because my school gives out chocolate milk.
They do not.
Oh my god. They have the worst lunches, but they still give out chocolate milk. I've had the chocolate milk once, but I'm not a big fan of eating the school food or drinking the school milk. So I had it one time, one sip. It was pretty good, but I don't still trust it.
Oh, yeah.
That's fair. Do not tell the kids at South that you get chocolate milk. So. You just busted it.
The kids at South, oh, man, the school lunch. I don't know how many people really trusted it, but...
Yeah. One of my other favorite quotes about lunch was one of our graduated friends already was trying to eat the mac and cheese and said, "I can't eat any more of this mac and cheese. It tastes like sawdust and sadness." That was one of my other favorite quotes. So,
oh no.
Yeah, I mean, those are my favorite. It was just the things that come out of y'all's mouths it's just, and this is, I'm going to go on a little tangent here, because this is what adults do not understand about teenagers and how wonderful y'all are. It's like, you are hardwired to think about yourselves. Like, that is developmentally appropriate, and that is what you should be doing. And so when adults can just sort of sit back and, like, support the people that you're becoming and just, like, listen to those funny things and really, like, enjoy those moments of being a teenager and discovering the world and just, like, I mean, just saying stuff, asking the funniest questions, that I wish that more adults could be, like, see that side of teenagers, because y'all are so much more than we think.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely met some amazing people at South. Some really fun and funny people. Yeah, I really enjoyed the community that would surround your office. They were definitely some very, very funny people.
Yeah.
I met just some people who told hilarious jokes that would make me cry when, like, they told them. And it was definitely, some of the people there were just super funny and super kind, and I think it's really fun to see, you know, people thriving in their element and being able to, you know, support each other like that.
100%. And South, like, kids from South Minneapolis are so, like, fun and unique, and, you know, just I feel like it's a good community, and I'm proud to be part of it. I love that Anderson and South are both my home schools. You know, I live very close, and so it's kind of cool to feel that, you know, and see y'all out and be like, "Hey, neighbors."
No, yeah, I agree. I think especially South Minneapolis, or, like, just Minneapolis public schools, like, seeing, like, my peers and, like, just other teachers and stuff realizing that, like, resilience, especially just within our community, like, it makes me proud to kind of, like, see where we're at right now. You know?
Yes, that is such a beautiful thing to say, a beautiful word, resilience, because I think that is really key to remember, too. It's like when you get knocked down, you know, it's like that's when we have to reach out and be that community and, you know, reach out to those people and be like, "Hey, I'm struggling, you know, and then the next time somebody else can be like, I'm struggling, and you're like, I'm in a better place. I can help you out.
Of course, yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think resilience is definitely the right word to put for South Minneapolis. I think a lot of the communities that have transpired from all of the hurt and pain that we as a community have gone through have really, you know, formed a tighter bond and formed a tighter net. So if you say, like, if you speak out about something that's going on, an injustice or just a pain, I think a lot of people are super willing to, you know, help and reach out. And I think that's really amazing and beautiful.
Yes. I love that.
How would you help a kid going through a mental breakdown and can't process what's happening?
This is, like, probably one of the main parts of my job, I think, is mostly I just try and slow y'all down, really. Like, if you come to me and you're feeling really dysregulated or you can't process, like, most of the time the processing will come later. And what we want to do is just get you back kind of grounded in your body, grounded in the space. We'll probably do some really cheesy breathing, maybe with my breathing ball that, you know, some of the kids are rolling their eyes at. But, I mean, the biggest thing is just to kind of slow down, take some breaths, and then I always tell kids, like, there is no problem that we cannot solve. There's nothing that you're going to encounter that doesn't have a solution. And so I think sometimes just being able to, like, hold that fear for kids in those moments is really important, and just be like, it's okay if you can't breathe for a minute because you'll get some air. It's okay if you know, can't process this because we can process it later. And I think, too, just, I mean, it sounds silly, but giving fidgets, just giving, like, some space. Some kids don't want to talk right away, and they just kind of want to sit, and they don't need any adults talking at them. And so I think it's, too, just, like, knowing each other and being like, oh, you know, last time when you came in here, you didn't really feel like talking to anybody. I'm just going to give you some space, and you let me know when you're ready.
I think you definitely helped my way of calming down when in, you know, a frustrated mood a lot. I think you really helped me with that. Because before, I didn't really think like that. But now, you know, I think no matter what happens, it'll be okay and we'll get through it. It may be hard now and it may feel like impossible or daunting now. But even just we'll get through it okay, even if it's hard. And I think you definitely helped me come to that viewpoint and mindset.
Oh, good. Yeah, I mean, we definitely, like, practicing all those things, you know, when you're feeling regulated, too, really helps. Like, practicing your breathing, practicing just, like, mindfulness and kind of paying attention to your surroundings. Because that way, when you are in that escalated state, then your body and your sort of muscle memory will remember how to do that when you're dysregulated. Yeah.
And I'm just kind of wondering, what is some advice you'd give to a student who is, like, kind of struggling to reach out for help to communicate with a social worker?
Yeah, that is one of the hardest things, I think, making that, like, kind of how we talked about in sports before, writing your name down. Yeah, the first step is the worst. I think just, like, encouraging students to just use whatever method feels most comfortable for you. I know that not so much with the middle schoolers, but with the high schoolers, I have a Google Voice number, and so a lot of kids would text me and say, like, hey, I really need an appointment, and then we could set one up and they could come. Sometimes they would talk to other adults that they felt comfortable talking to, and then that adult would contact me and be like, hey, I know this really great student that needs help with, you know, X, Y, or Z. Email, some kids would email me. Those are probably the most common, but just sort of, like, remembering that everybody needs help. None of us are living on an island by ourselves. We all need other people in our lives. And just that there's, like, no shame, especially, like, coming to a social worker, because, like, that's exactly what I'm expecting, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
Like,
it's what your job is.
Yeah. When you come to me and you're like, I'm struggling with mental health, I'm like, all right, sweet pea, come on in. We'll get you a snack. We'll get you some water. Like, let's slow it down and figure out what to do.
One of my favorite things that you did at South was the little cards you had on the door where you could write what you wanted and slip it under. And, like, you know, even when you weren't writing super important things, it was fun to just draw a doodle on it and know that, you know, later you'll see it. And it was fun to draw on them with your friends and be like, okay, well, this is going to Alicia, so it'll be okay. No matter how silly we get, they'll appreciate it.
And that's it, too, just leaving space for y'all to be kids. Like, something, even though I want children to be in class at Anderson, God love them. And what I think is so funny sometimes is I will see like some kids like peeking around the corner, like seeing if I'm in the hallway and then giggling and just like running away. And I'm just like, you know, they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing, like whatever. But sometimes that's just a beautiful moment when you're like, just kids are being kids. You know, it's like when one of y'all would give me like a little doodle or say something. And I'm just like, this is so beautiful because it's so authentic and it comes from y'all, you know.
I think, never mind, I forgot what I was going to say.
I was going to say, yeah, just like you being a social worker, just like having you as a resource. Like I know so many kids, like so many of my peers really do appreciate that. And I feel like one of the things about high school that like I'm starting to realize is that like there's so many resources for so many different things, like not even just like for social work or counseling, but like just opportunities as a student.
Yes. Yeah.
And yeah, I feel like I said again, first step, just like reaching out or like looking for them in the first place.
Yeah.
And it can be hard at times. I feel like, but just, I think keeping an open mind at times.
Yeah. And I think I grew up obviously a million years ago with like no social media, and that is one thing I do appreciate about there being more like sort of advertising where queer spaces are, or where spaces are for folks of color, or where there's like for, you know, like the Tigers, you know, for like younger kids. And it is nice to be able to branch out, and then if you can meet some of those folks like from around Minneapolis, and maybe you'll meet somebody from your own school, or maybe you'll meet somebody that knows one of your friends, and then it's just like building that little chain of support.
I really enjoyed South because of how inclusive it was. And I also, that's another thing I loved about your office. I keep going on about it, but I liked it a lot because you made such an effort to bring so many different cultures there. You had things from protests, you had things that were, you know, anyone could have. You made sure to put out candies with no gelatin so that any kid could eat it.
Yes.
You made sure to, like, put up art from students. You would queer, like, you know, pride flags. You made sure this was a space for everyone. You would tarot cards in case anyone wanted to look into that. If someone wanted to look into tarot cards, you could. You had that there, and I thought you had such an inclusive space. It was really amazing.
I'm so glad. I really hope that teachers and other social workers can think about that too, because you want kids to see yourself when they come into your space. You want kids to be able to say, like, I feel safe here, I feel comfortable here. And, you know, I'm so glad that I was able to provide a space like that. And I think keeping, like, I always try and think like a social worker, right? Like trauma-informed care, like what is going to be good for y'all if you're just like, you know, not able to regulate, not able to be there. And I think sometimes when you look around and you see things that remind you of yourself, and you see things that, you know, remind you of your culture, that it can feel really soothing, I think, for your heart.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. You know, there was just your room was definitely just full of so many different people of so many different backgrounds. And, you know, like I said, even if I was never going to talk to this person again, they were open to tell me about, you know, themselves, and I was open to tell them about me. And it was definitely an open into just a curtain I had never experienced really before.
That's so great. I'm so glad. Yeah.
I just keep ranting on about, you know, how awesome you are, but
I'm blushing. People can't see it, but I am.
But I really do appreciate the inclusivity that you offered, and also tying into that, just that diversity in the first place.
Yeah.
And I really appreciate that, especially as like a community, just making sure like everyone's welcome, like no matter the background.
100%.
And like as a teenager too, just being like, you're welcome, like.
Yes. And I think, too, I mean, I'm a white social worker, and I can be some people's worst nightmares. You know what I mean? Like, my profession, we've done a lot of damage to communities, to a lot of communities. And so I feel like keeping that in mind, too, like what I bring to the table and, like, what kids might see in me as soon as they see me, as soon as they hear I'm a social worker, to try and keep that in mind, too, and just be really, like, patient and sort of show them who I am before I force them to make up their mind about me. Because I think a lot of students at first were sort of like, I don't know about you, you know, because I'm sort of out there also. And I want to let students just to kind of figure out their own opinion about me. And that's really important because when kids could see your actions and they decide to trust you, that's gold. That's like the most beautiful place that you can be in when you're in a relationship with a teenager, when there's trust and there's mutual respect.
Yeah, for me, I know a lot of... yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Miss Alicia. We're going to take a quick break for our street frequency segment. Elle from Fair School has this interview with the mascot from Coco Melon here on KRSM 90.9 Radio for All.
All right, so I'm with KRSM Radio, 98.9 FM, and I'm going to ask you a couple questions. I'm at the Coco Melon Playdate in Mall of America with Baby JJ. Baby JJ, how are you today? Because this is a radio station, nobody can see that Baby JJ is dancing, but he seems to be doing very well. All right, Baby JJ, my next question is, what was your favorite episode of Coco Melon to work on? If I'm interpreting him correctly, he is saying all of them. My next question is, what is it like being the voice of a generation, Baby JJ? Baby JJ has his hands in the air like he just don't care. He seems very happy to be the voice of a generation. He is now giggling. All right, last question, Baby JJ. How do you think Coco Melon as a brand will go on to impact the world's children? And he is up and dancing. All right. Thanks, Baby JJ. This has been a great interview.
And you're listening to KRSM 90.9 Radio for All Youth Frequency. We are our hosts, Ella, Addie, and I'm DJ Era. We're here with Miss Alicia Bauers at a local school social worker.
Back to, I don't remember where we were, but what is some advice? No, I already asked. How have you helped students who are reluctant to reach out to each other? You know, just reaching out to each other for support or making friends. How can you, make that first step or help each other?
Yeah, that's kind of a tough question because y'all can be real stubborn about meeting each other sometimes. I think that part of it is just to keep encouraging and to just be like, to explore some of the fears. What are you actually afraid of? What do you think that the other person is going to come back at you with? And just sort of kind of normalize that, especially as ninth graders. When y'all first came in, I think there's so much fear about, is my friend group going to be together? Am I making friends with the right people? Am I, doing this? Like, do I know where I'm going? And I think I just kept encouraging a lot of y'all, like, you just have to be patient and you have to, like, go after the things that you like. I think that Addie said that before, where it's like it can be hard to figure out what you like, but if you go after it and you're like, take that step forward, like maybe you've never run track before and all of a sudden you're like, nope, I'm going to give it a whirl, and then friendships like naturally kind of come out of those things.
Sorry, I'm so sorry.
Okay, honey. It's just easier to be like with people when you have sort of that like one commonality right away. You're like, oh, you like running? Oh my God, me too. Cool.
When I joined cross country, I had never, taken interest in it before, but some of my other friends were joining, so I did as well. And it ended up being a really, positive influence for me during that first year of high school because, I met new people. And even if I didn't really enjoy running, because, it's hard and I'm not the best at it, it was definitely still really positive, meeting those other people who were so supportive nonetheless. And making those goals. Like running my first 5K for me was huge. Yeah. I think I told you about it when it happened. But.
Yeah, that's very impressive to me. I could probably run like a half K maybe, but I'm very impressed with all of this sporting going on over here.
Yeah. Addie was talking about how they're not that fast, but they outrun me every time.
That sounded very fast to me. I'm not going to lie.
We'll see what happens this year.
Yes, we'll come cheer you on.
Every time they like to have me race them, and I swear every time they beat me by like half a mile.
100% believe that.
I was gonna say though, just to like add a little comment. I think with I don't know if it's just South. I feel like it's kind of other schools too, but for me, like some of my peers are just like honestly me in general, like being able to like reach out and like find like some sort of like after school club or just a sport, like doing that like after school thing, it can be hard to like honestly, because like I think doing extracurriculars just in general, not even as like putting it on your college application just to put it there, but like also just finding something that just seems remotely interesting, just giving it a try, just because I feel like keeping it like lighthearted like that, it honestly just opens up kind of like a bunch of doors for you.
Yes, I love that. I absolutely love that because it does help your mental health too. It's just like when you kind of get out of your head and share a space with people, share like a commonality, and you have fun, you know, you like move your body, you get some movement in, you know, and it's like when you're in school all day, you're just, you know, we force you all to sit in these little boxes and these little desks and like do this thing, and then you can finally sort of shed that skin at the end of the day and be like, oh my gosh, now I can bring out more of a part of myself.
Those extracurriculars, like Addie was saying, I do think it's like so much more important than I ever thought it would be. I got to try completely new things, and that was super fun. I had never considered doing running before, and I got to play new instruments, and that was really big for me because I found things I enjoy a ton now.
Yes.
So I think extracurriculars are definitely like really big for high school. I didn't do any in middle school, but I know you did.
Yeah, track again.
Did you? Okay.
Yes. But I feel like, when I wasn't doing like any extracurricular, to me it was like, okay, I'm home, and then I'm going to school, and then I go back home, and then that's it. And it just, I feel like it gets repetitive, and I feel like, I don't know, to me as a teenager, it's like to spice it up, kind of.
Yeah.
I definitely look forward to, you know, those like little bits in my week that are different from the other bits.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, coming here every Wednesday is definitely a highlight. I get to hang out with my friends and come sit in a cool little office with lights. And,
this is very cool. This is very cool.
It's super awesome. And, you know, getting to see the people who work the radio stations is amazing.
Yeah, especially as like community radio, and I've done like volunteering at my local library, Franklin Library.
Awesome.
Yeah, like
Franklin
both
Library,
of those.
shout out.
Yes, but like both of those things, just like wow, like realizing like community, like it's seriously, it's so more important than I ever realized. It's like wow, like we really are all connected. Like it's such a beautiful thing to me, honestly.
And that's like how I think too, just like when we talk about mental health, I feel like that's one thing that's really missing is community care, like talking about that. I feel like some communities do a great job, and that's sort of already endemic in like their culture or like the way that they care for each other. But I think that sort of with a lot of like emphasis on being individuals and sort of like, you know, working it out by yourself and just buckling down, I think that sort of people are sort of realizing that we need rest and we need care and we need gentleness and vulnerability, and those things like make it worthwhile to have relationships. You know, it makes the space easier to like open up and be yourself. And I think that a lot of mental health stuff comes from the fact that, you know, we don't feel like we're seen or heard or understood. And then when you get that chance to be in that third space or be in that extracurricular, then it's like just affirming the person that you are. And that's so important, especially at y'all's age. I just sounded real old.
I think that was one of my favorite parts of just being able to see George Floyd Square. I know this isn't your area of expertise, but I really loved the community that had built it up, you know, because they were building it up, you know, themselves. No help, just full community. And just the art that has surrounded it and, you know, all the flowers I really think helps, you know, it shows the group mourning. You know, you are showing that you're not alone in the pain and anger that is going through everyone's heads. And it shows that instead of like suffering, everyone is speaking out about it. They're all putting a flower down and saying, you know, we're all here together. And I think that was really a really beautiful thing that we could definitely use in more places, is a more community outlook and, you know, more individualized areas.
Yeah, I agree. I think just like taking that grief and that pain and just building it up into like just that power, that resistance, I think is just, it's so important. And seeing that culminate in like either art or just also like seeing that in social media, seeing how many people just like began to notice or began to recognize in the first place, I think it's just so important and really, I think, helps spark more community.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of it really just does tie to community and connection.
It does. And it was one of the things that a lot of South students asked me when I first started working at South was, where do I live? Because I think that they wanted to know that I was close by, you know, that I sort of went through, you know, was in the uprising, that I witnessed that with everyone else. And I think that that was important to the students, is that they knew right away that, like, I live where they live, that, you know, we were all in this together. Yeah.
I think that's
beautiful souls.
I think it's really important, you know, just having a strong community bond with your neighbors. I think that can be really, you know, amazing and a positive influence. While I didn't really have many neighbors my age growing up, I am in an area where there are, you know, a lot of little kids of similar age, and seeing them, you know, going around on their, you know, little bikes in groups is just adorable. And it's nice to know that, you know, they have friends to come back to.
Yeah, I love that.
Yeah, and I was going to say about South, like South High School's community, and also just like having all nations there as well, like that being specific to South, I think is such a unique and kind of powerful thing as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
I definitely think it, you know, it helped bring a lot of people together, and, you know, it was definitely cool to be able to see bits of culture I had never really gotten to experience before. Like I had never gotten to experience, you know, all nations culture firsthand. I had never really gotten to see it. You know, I, of course, hear it through media. I see, you know, powerful things, but I'm not getting to see those things up close. And that was really, really cool.
Yeah, I loved, one of my favorite things, I think, was working there's a lot of East African folks at South, and a lot of the kids would teach me how to say things in Somali, like to tell them how to go to class or to tell them, you know, whatever. And it was just so funny because, I mean, my accent is terrible. You know, it's like I don't even know if my mouth can make some of those sounds. And it was like they were just so gracious with me and just helped me. And were like, no, you say it like this, or like, you know, just to make them laugh, you know. And I love that too. I just love that there's, I don't know, at Anderson, this is pretty true too, but you can really meet just so many different kinds of people. And I think that's what makes, you know, South Minneapolis South probably in particular a really, really special place.
I think it was really nice to be able to, you know, have those people. I think it really shows that they, you know, opened up fully and were comfortable with you. And I think that was it was a really positive, you know, area.
Yeah. We had, maybe I could tell you one kind of funny story, actually, speaking of that. So we got some gummies that someone had donated to us, and we didn't realize right away that they had gelatin in them. And as soon as we did, it was like we just like stopped. We like took all the you know, candies over there, and the kids were they freaked out a little bit because I was like, oh my God, like I am giving children haram candy, like in my office. Like I just felt terrible. And so, you know, it's like they came in and we kind of talked about it, and they were half joking, but we had to have a conversation about it, you know, and I had to say, like, I'm not Muslim, I'm white. Like I was not trying to feed you gelatin candies, but it was fun because then, you know, we talked about it and how if the kids didn't know that that's what they were eating, that, you know, it was okay. And, you know, then we kind of joked, and they, you know, I asked if I was haram because, you know, I was feeding them candies, and then you know, they assured me that no, and one of them joked that I might be haram because I'm gay. And then the other kids freaked out, but it was, you know, it's those moments because you do get close with folks, and then you can, like, you know, that student felt really comfortable with me in order to be able to joke around like that. And
of course.
Yeah, and it was, I think sometimes when outside folks, like, would hear the conversations or hear the way that kids talk sometimes, that they'll be like, oh, that's out of pocket, or like, they shouldn't, you know, say that. But when you build that relationship with, especially with teenagers, and y'all, like, really show your personalities, it's hilarious. And you're funny and astute and intelligent people. And, like, for a student to feel safe enough to say those things, you know, to an adult is really precious. And so I really wanted to honor that too. And, you know, showing that you're an adult, you can have conversations, you can apologize, you can take responsibility for your behavior, and just, like, model how to be a human. I think that that's really great, because I don't think we as adults do that enough, where we act just basically human around y'all, you know.
I think that was one of the reasons why I appreciated, you know, your presence at South. And you, I don't know if I've said this before, but you definitely were one of the first, like, school workers that I felt, like, safe enough to come to, besides one of my history teachers, Miss Helmer. I love you.
Shout out.
Shout out, Miss Helmer. I love you. You were one of the first, like, adults I felt safe enough to come to and talk to about, you know, personal things.
Yeah.
Because instead of treating us just like, you know, children, you treated us like equal beings that, you know, you could apologize to. Because I don't, you know, you don't hear adults apologize often to, you know, teenagers or children. It's more just less of that and more of you apologize to them when something's happened.
Yeah.
But you know, having the courage to apologize and just being able to treat us like equals who had emotions and yet had responsibilities, that was really, really helpful.
I'm so glad to hear that. Yeah, we need to make y'all feel like whole people, you know, and that's, I think as adults, a lot of times I think adults don't even really know how to do that sometimes, or be like, how do I hold space for a teenager, especially around, you know, mental health or things that they see as, like, you know, drama or problems. And I think that just sort of backing up and allowing ourselves to be really human and transparent with y'all is what can open the door to some trust too, because it should be some on us, because y'all shouldn't have the full responsibility of being like, hey. So,
yeah. And I also just want to quick mention, just being, like, in the Midwest, I think especially just, like, having this, like, diversity and connection and community is so important, especially now, I think.
Yes. Yeah.
Today's day and age, yeah.
Absolutely. Yep.
Yeah. All right. But one more question. What do you think?
I don't know. I could ramble on forever. Speaking of, how do you think the election results will affect students' mental health?
Yeah.
And just, you know, those spaces.
Yeah, this is a huge one, I think, especially, I think right now in Anderson, and I think at South too, a lot of us are having discussions specifically about, like, Latino immigrant families and the folks that are from other countries who may not be documented, and I think that there's a lot of fear specifically around that. And I just think that sort of the general rhetoric has been really hard. The attack on trans kids, you know, the attack on rights for people, just anybody really that's not a cis straight white dude. I mean, really, you know, some communities are being hit really, really hard. And so I think I have seen already sort of like folks, you know, needing each other. But I think it's going to be a long haul, and we really need to tap into that community.
All right. And I appreciate that. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
And we've come to the end of our show, and I'd like to thank Mix Alicia for joining us today and telling us about their unique experience being a social worker in the Twin Cities schools. My name is Addie, and my co-hosts with me today were Ella and DJ Air Out. You're listening to Youth Frequency on KRSM 98.9, and join us next week, Wednesday at 5 p.m.